something we've got to be filming afterwards, so we just thought we'd go early.
Multiple Zoom blooming meetings,
Yeah,
and God
all
knows what
sorts of
else.
stuff.
So, but we said we didn't want to miss any time with you.
Morning everyone, morning Amy May. So we've suddenly come on a bit too soon, so some of you may have gone off for a cup of tea, and you'll come back and you'll see that we're here.
Right, well then what I'm going to start with is what I was just saying over on Instagram. Yesterday I settled down.
The stairs.
Look at the state of this place.
Going to the skip.
We look like nutcases.
No, well, we're heading to the skip.
We're never going to get to the dump. Are
we
you
have
kidding
to.
Me?
We have to.
Swear to God, in 6 months' time, we'll still be telling this lot that we're going to the fucking dump. We don't do that shit, Mark.
Shut your mouth.
We don't. We just talk about it.
Okay, anyway, what are we going to start with?
So last night, Mark was at the cinema. The girls were both busy. And this popped up, Cheer. Has anyone seen it? And I went, oh, that was good. Is that a docuseries? The girls were like, no, it's not. It's a really crappy drama. Anyway, whilst you were all gone, I thought I'll just check it out. Oh my God, it looks brilliant. Has any of you seen it? It's a docu-series about a cheerleading group.
Oh no, really?
And it is the most, it's Netflix.
Getting coffee.
It's Netflix, Mark, and it's the most engaging first few minutes because it's this really sort of wiry, sort of quite hard-faced, obviously very good looking in her youth, but sort of a bit bitter and world-weary now, talking directly into camera, saying, well, obviously an American accent, I won't do this. I wanted to do this series because I wanted to show the extraordinary athleticism and dedication that goes into being a cheerleader. And she's like broken looking into cameras, great shot. And you suddenly think, God, am I in some sort of, you know, the world's worst female killers? That was kind of the vibe, because she was very angry. And she said the incredible moments that we had in this series, but who would ever think what happened, what was going to be revealed had happened? You're like, Jesus, what is this? And you've seen all the cheerleaders doing the most incredible acrobatics and everything. And then you cut to this, there's this sweet, sweet boy, young black boy. And the reason I'm saying that he was a young black boy is that suggestion is that he's then arrested at some point, and you see the shots of him in the court and saying he could get 15 years in prison, and it's all across America. It's on the news channels, and people, it appears that there's some big race story within it, but and there's 2 series.
Right.
But oh my God, it looks so. It's a documentary, but it's a series.
Ah, okay. That
2
sounds good.
series. Has anybody seen? So I was so desperate to watch it, and then I thought, don't tell me what happens. Don't tell me what happens. But I thought I can't, because I know Mark and the girls will love this.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to read out what you said, Reese, because
he tell us what happens?
It kind of explains it. But yeah, no, thanks for letting us know. Oh yeah, what do you think of this?
Can't see it at all. COVID-19 UK tour. March home, April home, May home, June home, July hairdressers, August 50% off eat out, September pub until 10, October home, November home, December home.
Tour date.
I love it.
That's funny.
That is funny. I'm laughing.
But you don't sort of make a noise anymore when you laugh. You just say it and go, COVID-19 tour. There you go. See, you get it. Yeah.
Oh, look, Keeping Up with the Aristocrats. That looks good. New ITV show.
How are we all? How is everyone? Gabrielle, hello. Courtney Richardson. Signed photos are going out soon.
Gabrielle is a member for 25
exactly.
months.
So
does that mean you've been right from the very beginning?
Yes. That's the maximum.
Is it? Oh, wow. Welcome.
After 24 months, lots of you are getting your signed photos are heading out, and a few straggly cards from members' lives that didn't make it, got lost in the post. They've all gone out. And we haven't had the winner of the video message, have we? Yet from the live Saturday show.
No, we haven't. We need to do that.
Somebody's won.
Because in the members area we do this thing every 2 weeks where we set a question and then somebody will win a video from Mark and I where we'll do a personal message. So sorry, yes, we've forgotten that.
Yeah, no, I think So we need to check whose message that is.
Oh, thank you. Who's that? Tony, is it? Tracy says, I love being a member.
Reese, it wasn't the tragedy of Macbeth, though I am watching that because I'm just going to watch it on Apple TV. I'm just going to crack on. Who won the Ninja? The Ninja competition is coming. Is that right?
It's been a lot. Do bear with me. I have now decided, because no, maybe I shouldn't say what's happened, but anyway, it will be a gift from my organisation.
It's happening. It's happening. It's happening.
A lot of. On which machine is...
How long is a piece of string? It's a bit like our Euphoria reviews. They're happening, but they might happen at the beginning of season 3. I think this is number 400 Coffee Moaning. First one was on the 6th of June 2000.
Who's this?
Faith Goodman.
Oh, Faith, you are wonderful the way you know all these things. 400 today?
Yeah. Bearing in mind it was, as our friend reminded us, it was called Coffeed 19, wasn't it? For the first couple of weeks.
COVID-19, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, that friend of ours, we hope you're okay.
Annabella Orr, I stubbed my toe last week and it's throbbing.
Well, maybe you need to get seen to.
Yeah.
If it's still throbbing a week later.
Someone here said, morning from a fellow vasculitis warrior, Annie Taylor, you and Chi-Chi are
Chi-Chi wasn't
together.
She, the other day she wasn't very well. We went to the vet again. I said, we've got to accept she has a long-term illness.
Yeah.
And some days she's just going to feel like absolute shit. She was limping for no reason yesterday, wasn't she?
She's a steroid dog. It's a little bit like my asthma pumps, actually.
We keep trying to reduce the steroids, and then as soon as we do, she gets ill again, so...
Yeah, which was the suggested plan to reduce her steroids.
Yeah, and the only reason we are anxious to... Well, lots of reasons to reduce the steroids is nobody wants to take a pill all the time, but also it means she's starving all day long, which is horrible for her. And that is a kind of torture, really, for a dog, isn't it? She's more like a Labrador now. Apparently Labradors are hungry all the time.
Yeah, no, that's true. James Flanagan just wanted to pop on today, not to bring the mood down, but today Aisling Murphy's family will say their final goodbye at 11.
God,
Hard day for a lot of people.
Oh, really? We didn't know that. Thank you. A terrible day.
Terrible day.
A quite extraordinary day. Does anyone know where we are with that? Have they originally arrested somebody and released them?
They released them.
It was like that poor girl that went missing and 2 days ago, coming home from Club 18, and we all, don't we, as parents, just shudder, absolutely shudder. And we were like, oh, very dark feeling about it. And then yesterday, on the news, they announced, whatever her name was, I don't want to say her name, has been found alive and well, and a man has been arrested for battery, kidnap, and threatening to kill. I was like, but she's been found alive and well. I mean...
let's qualify the word well.
Yeah, let's qualify the word well. 18 years old, coming home from a club.
Well, kind of on that note, James, the House of Lords, here in the UK we have the House of Commons and we have the House of Lords. The House of Commons is voted for. The House of Lords is an unelected body of lords and ladies. Sounds like something out of a song. But in the House of Lords, they do actually sometimes have quite a useful role in that they can't reverse a decision in the House of Commons, but they can delay it and they can advise on it. And I think it's a 2-year delay. They can delay things by 2 years through amendments and recommendations and things like that. So
how unusual is it what's happening?
Well, it's always considered unusual because obviously, not surprisingly, the House of Lords is often conservative leaning.
Should be the same amount.
So I think what is surprising about this is not necessarily that they voted in their votes against the government's controversial measures that they've added to the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, which is all about the right to demonstrate, the stop and search of anyone in case they're going to attach themselves to things. If you've had a prior sort of low conviction of something, that you can be automatically stopped or banned from protesting. There's all sorts of different rules. They've pushed back on nearly all of them, and they've effectively thrown it back to the House of Commons with all their recommendations. But one big news story out of it was that the House of Lords voted to make misogyny a hate crime. And they want it to be attached to the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill. And the idea being that if someone is convicted of a serious offence, if it can also be deemed to be misogynistic intent, then it will be a more severe penalty / what's the word when you're given a conviction?
Trouble is, how many misogynists even know what the bloody word means?
Well, no, it's not for them.
Even
it's
know
not for
when
them
they're
to decide.
misogynistic.
Yeah, but that's the job
No,
of the
but you
lawyers.
also want it as a deterrent. So people go, I can't be misogynistic. We're going to have to keep getting the messaging out there about what it is. We have to teach men,
Yeah.
young men,
I think if you're
what it is.
if you're willing to commit a crime that's serious enough to go to court, I think it's almost always a safe bet that it's a misogynistic crime. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a
there's
very odd
It's an
ruling.
odd way. But anyway, I think more important is the symbolism of misogyny being defined as a hate crime.
Yes,
because
it's
it's
very
against
important.
a half.
Very
Yeah,
important.
it's against half the population, and we rightly rail against hate crime against all other minorities. Whether it's enacted is another question. So why not have the same thing happening for women?
In France, they've gone further and they've made it an act of terror.
Yeah,
Terrorism. They're in
absolutely,
line
yeah.
with terrorism because it is an act of terror. Every time our girls go out, we put to the back of our mind how terrorised we are, terrorised we
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
and they are terrorised, and they know to be alert at every single second.
Right.
So, you know, what's the definition of the word terrorism? To incite terror.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, just the other day, a friend of one of our daughters, you know, late afternoon is going round to meet up with a group of her friends at a house, and a guy comes up and starts talking to her, wants to borrow a lighter. That story ends up with her running as fast as she can to the house, with him running behind her straight into the drive. And if the girl that was there's father hadn't been in the drive, he probably would have tried to get straight in the house. You know, so
no, absolutely terrifying.
terrorising.
Sean Thomas says, have you seen Coronation Street? They're currently doing a storyline about upskirting in high schools. I'm pleased you mentioned that, actually. I think there was a time, I don't know if it's, and I think it still is, where things like soap operas actually serve a really important function, because they're straight into the kind of family home.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They can hit a serious sort of social subject. And I wonder whether things like education around misogyny, the thing we were talking about with toxic masculinity, it's a really, you know, rich place to actually discuss these things.
Because like we said the other day, the problem is a lot of children will be growing up, and a lot of children watch EastEnders, will be growing up in households where misogyny is the absolute norm, where their mother could be either treated, you know, physically, you know, could be attacked physically, or just a daily rundown. And they see that and they grow up with that, and then that's very difficult to disentangle. And you're right, you know, soap operas over the years have done some great stuff on,
really
on
good
all
stuff.
sorts of topics.
Kerry Gracie, I'll pop something on the community tab just to explain for all of you where you can get your photos from. Amy May, I get approached on the bus quite often. They're usually about 40 years older than me. You know, I got followed home by a guy who was telling me about how he was arrested for attempted murder of his girlfriend.
Oh my God.
What is wrong with these?
Trying to
What is wrong
incite
with
terror in you.
What is wrong
He's a
with them?
terrorist. That's a fucking terrorist.
Yeah.
Oh God, darling, I know just how terrified you will have been, walking, panicking. What are you going to...
Reese Roberts, it's a reflection that the danger in the streets, it's as bad as it's ever been, especially in London, as the night tube has been stopped, and with Uber being skyrocketed in fare, people linger more. It's true. It's you know, how do you get home? It's as simple a dilemma for women as maybe the tube drivers should maybe just entertain that thought as they're negotiating having
Whether
to do two nights
Put
in a
yourself
year.
together. Have any of you got a daughter or a mother or a sister or an auntie?
But we won't get going on that one. Nicola Higgins, females are on level 5 alert every time they step out the door.
Constant risk assessment that you're running continuously in your head.
Yeah.
Even before people think, well, you know, don't go out at night. This isn't about nighttime. This is about any time of day or night. And in fact, sometimes I went out recently for an early morning run walk, and it was early, and actually it was very scary out there because there was a lot of people that were still coming down from the night before on whatever drugs or drink they were on. You know, none of us can be under the illusion that if only women stayed in and locked themselves up and gave themselves a fucking curfew, they would be all right. I mean, I have had a curfew all my life. I'll never walk out at night time. Self-imposed curfew.
And it's just, I think it's telling of the times that the House of Lords takes a more progressive stance than the House of Commons.
Incredible,
really.
And you know, I was listening to a police chief of some sort that made, what would it be if you're in the House of Lords, a statement on this, or gave his opinion, I don't know, on these new draconian laws, and he said they were an absolute disgrace. We couldn't have had the suffragettes, we couldn't have had the marches against Nelson Mandela, because it's not just a case of, oh, you can't glue yourself to the motorway. There's some really serious noise levels.
Here's the thing, imagine this, and it's not too hard to imagine, because, you know, the suffragettes is a really good example. Let's scroll forward, God forbid, 100 years in time, and there are still schools, let's hope, on the planet and children being educated. Who's to say that the eco-warriors chaining themselves to the walls and the floors and the motorways now won't be seen as the heroes that the suffragettes are now seen? You know, it's all about perspective. It's all about timing. Yes, we can all talk about the fact that were they targeting the right people in the right way? Could they have targeted big business and all that? I think there's an argument and a discussion to be had there for sure. But removing their right to protest, I think, is not right. I think...
We just can't have that because then we're in a dictatorship.
It can feed into so many other exploitations.
Priti Patel is batshit crazy megalomaniac, and I was just listening to LB. I think
Allegedly.
You know, I was just listening on LBC, and you know, I believe I only just caught the end of it. The Navy have now publicly. Apparently, this came out 8 o'clock last night on the Times website.
Well, I heard the Navy.
They're not going to take their big boats out,
yeah.
and effectively because it's against all maritime law to put anyone in danger on the sea. So he just put it very well, James O'Brien. He said, so Operation Red Meat. How long did I say it takes to guzzle a juicy piece of red meat and then you turn around for the next bit? This was such a load of old rubbish.
I'll tell you who I really like, because I want you to understand we don't just get our punditry from James O'Brien. The political editor of The Sun last night said, well, you can well imagine, he's very posh, but he's very funny. Posh. I do like him. And he said, well, you know, we've been putting Operation Red Meat and all the policies under the stress test. And well, how surprising. They're all falling apart within the first 10 minutes.
You can't have the Navy out doing that. I mean,
I heard a naval officer last night talking with great passion.
Oh, did you hear?
I don't know if it was the same guy, maybe. He was saying, how can you... He was really going nuts about the hypocrisy of the government and the garden parties and all that kind of stuff, saying, you know, talking about the fact that this is a clear distraction away from Partygate.
For some very, very angry naval officers and... What are they called? Navy?
Captains?
Well, all kinds
Naval
of people
officers
from the Navy ringing in yesterday, and they were broken-hearted. I was moved to tears when they said, all that we do, you know, when you think these ships cost millions and millions of pounds, we are a peacekeeping force unless we need to go to war.
Admirals.
And we do not ever leave somebody in the sea,
no.
You know, and he said us taking these multi-million-pound ships out to a tiny paddling pool in the sea, they said it brings dishonour on the Navy.
Yeah.
We're ashamed of what the government are trying to do to distract by using our name in such a disgusting way. Honestly, I was moved to tears.
Yeah.
And he said, he said that loads of colleagues, they'd all been ringing each other and they said they were going to refuse to do it. You know, so... Priti Patel, I mean, she's just not very bright.
I was kind of flabbergasted when I heard that they were talking or discussing using sonic boom technology, which essentially from the coast, sonic booms are fired out into the English Channel, and it will make people vomit and sick and nauseous.
But do they not get what's going on here? Until somebody is assessed, they're an asylum seeker, there are people fleeing for their lives, right? And at the moment, they're getting into basically things that aren't much better than a paddling pool, getting to freezing seas in the dead of night, holding their babies, and a lot of them are unable to swim. That's how desperate they are. Do you think by also blasting their ears with a sonic whatever is going to go, oh, well, I tell you what, I'm definitely not going to do that. These are desperate souls.
The problem is, it's like the guy, one of the Army naval guys said, this is a complex problem that needs a strategy. It's not just a case of picking up the boat, taking them back to France. It's not just a case of sending them off to Ghana. This is a fundamental structural, systemic problem with the planet, and it requires global help.
Not a Sunday night, a Home Secretary tweeting what she thinks she might do. do.
And I tell you, the other big sort of strange thing about this is that really it's another one of those things that the irony is that I think that by leaving the EU, I think a lot of people who voted for Brexit thought this would solve our immigration
It's made
problem.
it
It probably
worse.
has stopped. It's probably stopped legal migration. Yes, reduced it. But this is going to be the net result, and the EU would help with this. There were checks and balances all over Europe. You know, Germany, I think, took more migrants than we took.
We do. We take the least, apparently.
Oh look, could become radioactive. Anyway,
Somebody just said you look very young today, Mark.
Oh, crikey, I look radioactive now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Cummings and Boris Johnson.
Wow.
The big standoff, the big squaring up, the Mexican standoff. It's like, oh my God, who's going to blink first?
Who's the bigger liar? Who is the big... Don't
But
forget
who
what
is
a bloody
gonna blink
liar Dominic
first?
Cummings was in the first place.
I know. What
So
do we
all
do?
our chat last night, Mark and I, was...
What do you think? Who should we believe whilst we talk? You tell us. Boris or Dominic?
The thing is, Dominic said yesterday he'll stand up in a court of law and say that the Prime Minister knew about the parties, which we kind of just have to take with a pinch of salt because he's lied so much in the past. We can't really imagine him in a court of law. But the fact that he said that there's at least 3 to 4 other people, that ministers, that will, under oath, say that. It's a very different thing when you pull people into a court of law, I suppose, and say, tell the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
People might just shy away and not say anything. But if you ask directly, did you know that the Prime Minister knew about these parties, and you did, and you say, no, that's a different thing. And as they said on LBC today, which was a good point, when you look at that email, he actually says, the private secretary, after a very hard week and on the sunniest day of the year, we thought it would be lovely to have a bit of time in the garden, bring your own bottle of wine. Now, when he says we, the private secretary isn't going to... Who is it? We, him and his wife? Or him and his boss?
Yeah.
What's more likely for it to be? Boris.
Sorry, I was just dealing with something there. Sorry, go on.
It's Boris.
Yeah.
When the private secretary put in the email, we would like to
Oh, yeah,
invite
yeah,
you for
absolutely.
a drink.
The royal
he
we.
can't say we
Yeah.
in the boss's house without
Yeah.
the boss knowing.
If there's you and your boss and you say we, it's not just you.
No.
It
And it's
can't
not it's not you and your wife, is it? It's
No.
you and your boss.
No, absolutely. I mean, lots of people are saying neither can be trusted, and I think
No,
it's
They can't. He was a despicable liar.
Yeah.
But the thing is, now we know why he thought it was fine to drive home and everything, because there was a party every week in Downing Street. So they obviously just saw themselves as the
What's
elite.
going to happen? I mean, we were discussing this last night. I mean, you think he's going to wait for the Sue Gray?
I mean, he can't help
Nonsense of
himself,
a
can
report.
he? Because obviously yesterday he was just like, he couldn't... I truly believe Dominic Cummings has something. And he has something big. And I think
Crabs?
it's a photo. I think he's a despicable human being himself, but he's a bad enemy to have, that's for sure, because he plays dirty. And he's just like dropping bits and pieces.
Okay, can I be honest
Mind
with you?
you, the woman in the Mirror yesterday, political editor on Sky News,
yeah.
she did say, she said, I would never reveal my sources, but if anybody thinks that Dominic Cummings would be talking to me, so it's not Dominic Cummings that gave the story to the Mirror. She said that yesterday.
Can I also just say that whilst of course there's the whole Barnard Castle and everything, a lot of Dominic Cummings' reputation also came from his job as a spin doctor. I don't know if you remember, but when Alastair Campbell, who's now a very accepted and trusted and listened to pundit,
He was
loathed
loathed.
in exactly the same way, because their job is about spinning. You know, so in many respects, you could argue
It is their job.
Dominic did his job
PR.
very, very well.
Yeah.
He's also come out and said that though he was a clear, a leading architect of Brexit, that he really disagrees and doesn't like the way in which Brexit has
Brexit's
been
wrong.
enacted. I just think that's kind
He
of
was the one responsible for that huge lie on the side of the bus.
Yeah.
What was it? How many millions a week were we going to get back for the NHS?
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it's tricky. It's tricky to know who to trust here. But I think...
I don't trust either.
I only think that from what you said and what from the Mirror woman said, there must be other people here corroborating this. And I think that's what's more interesting.
I thought that was really interesting yesterday when she said that, the political editor, because I assumed that big reveal in the Mirror, which was the first reveal, was Dominic, and she's saying it's not.
Yeah.
So that means there is a shadow, there's somebody in the shadows that might have all sorts of grievances with the way that the play... Because it doesn't necessarily mean, whoever is leaking this, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, they just don't like Boris and they want to get rid of Boris. Somebody's conscience might have hit them.
Yeah. Blueberry Jam Set 177 says 63% of Tory MPs are supporting Boris. I think it's more than that. I think only 6 MPs are outwardly critical of Boris. Now, that doesn't mean anything. The Tories are a notoriously strategic party. They know they're 13% back behind in the polls. They don't want to be seen to be sort of mounting resistance, too much resistance against Boris at this stage, because, you know, a vote of no confidence would then be emerging from the opposition and what have you. So, you know, I don't think too much can be read into whether they're outspokenly against him at the moment. If it's found to be true, or it's proven that he in any way lied to the House of Commons, and that's really the nub of it. It doesn't really matter now. I think someone said last night that the Profumo affair was less about what he did. It was about the fact that he ended up lying.
It will become about the lie, and the same with.
And I think that's the danger.
Who's the American president?
That's the danger. Clinton.
Kerry no, not that one, the other one. Massive lies. The whole Watergate, Whitewash.
Oh, Nixon. Yeah, absolutely.
Kerry Bedford, we will sing you happy birthday in a minute.
So I think, watch this space. I personally think, like Nadia says, that when Sue Gray gives her verdict, which is going to be, let's face it, a whitewash.
I don't think she's going to whitewash.
No.
I don't think.
No, they're going to ensure. Boris will have got on the phone to her and said, make sure it sounds harsh.
No, but this was what we were talking about last night, wasn't it? I said, you know, we've all just kind of accepted now that the Sue Gray thing is just going to be rubbish. Faith Goodman just made a good point. Is there not CCTV in the garden of the Prime Minister?
There must be. If there was CCTV footage of Matt Hancock having a bit of a you-know-what, there must be in the garden for security purposes. That's a Faith. You need to work for MI5.
You should be one of those online detectives. That's a really good point. I haven't heard anyone mention that.
Phone up James O'Brien and ask him.
What was I going to say?
Faith, phone up James O'Brien and say, look, has anyone thought about this? What were you going to say, darling? So there we go. So the Dominic Boris spat continues.
About the Sue Gray. We've just kind of all accepted now, haven't we? Well, I have as well. Well, we're not going to get anything from Sue Gray. But the thing is, we don't know how it works. If she has to ask all 30 people that were at the party whether it was obvious it was a party, is every single person going to lie? You know, maybe she will uncover the truth.
Well, maybe.
I don't think we should give up completely.
Yeah. Even not just the garden, but CCTV of them arriving, etc. Hundreds of people. Well, there was 60 or 40?
Only 100 were invited and 40 came, but don't forget they're already in the building.
You know,
because they work there, so them arriving wouldn't wash, really.
And it's quite astonishing watching the pushback. You know, obviously Keir having a beer, the Keir beer story. Not Care Bear, but the Keir beer.
So desperate.
But they're even now trying to suggest that there was a drinking culture in Gordon Brown's premiership. I mean, like, what's the relevance of that? Apparently it was like, because Gordon Brown had beer o'clock, somehow there's an equivalence drawn here.
Listen,
it's
it
all right to have beer
if
o'clock.
they'd had wine o'clock every night at Downing Street at the end of a working day and partied in the garden. It was because we were in a pandemic.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
Okay, so final story, which I thought was funny, is noisy neighbours. There's a story here. Italy's top court has enshrined the right to protection from loud lavatories after a 19-year battle between a tired couple and their neighbours flushing a toilet. So it took 19 years for them to finally uphold this. But yeah, so I just wanted to share a noisy loo. A noisy loo. What's the worst noisy neighbour sound that you've ever had to put up with?
What's that lot over there with their blank?
Well, that's the strummers, isn't it? It's the strummers.
We're not getting it now because it's the winter, but
that's
oh
true.
My God, every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Just horrendous.
Do you have noisy neighbours? Do you have noisy neighbours above or below? It's the flat thing. I remember when Izzy was a baby in a cot, we had a friend over one night and we'd all had a couple of drinks and then we all kind of were going to bed and obviously we put Izzy down and then we went into the room and I thought, I can smell gas. This is less about noisiness. But then I thought, there's gas. Where's it coming from? So I ran downstairs, banged on the woman's door. Sadly, the woman who lived down there was an alcoholic. She was so drunk, staggered to the door, and she'd left her gas hob on. And so I ran in.
That's worrying a flat,
I ran in, turned it off. So, you know, it's a constant door slamming, Fiona Reid. That must be
These
one.
things can drive you to the edge of insanity, can't they?
Drum and bass music,
Anastasia
Tim
lives in a
Reid.
field. She's got no neighbours, or you lucky thing.
Revving
Revving of cars, says Claire
Claire.
Smiley.
Yeah.
Flushes the toilet all through the night. God, you can hear your neighbour flush the toilet.
Bass, cars, Joe Phipps, mine
Neighbours
slam doors.
smoking weed, said Faith.
Yes,
God.
smelly neighbours. That's something, isn't it?
Telly really
Telly
loud.
really loud.
I think the worst thing for me, the very worst, all of those are horrendous and drive, but I wouldn't be able to bear hearing a horrible man or woman screaming at each other or screaming at their children.
Yeah.
I remember when I was little, there was the woman next door used to hit her kid. I don't think she was like a batter or anything, but it was the 70s. So you'd hear like, slap, get in here, slap. And as a child, it just used to like, oh my God, it used to really, really upset me. I couldn't bear that.
Fireworks for night after night. A lot of people saying weed. I mean, it's quite an invasive smell. For me, it smells like really dirty armpits.
Sounds like armpits.
Yeah.
I've got to go.
Yeah, no,
because
we've
I've
both got to go. Okay, so guys.
Oh no, hang on, Kerry's birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kerry. Happy birthday to you.
Have a lovely